and welcome to the Better Gaming Show, the online event and podcast series dedicated to all aspects of ethical gaming and gambling as we discuss how to make it safe, secure and socially balanced for everyone. Today we're doing a speaker spotlight episode and it features James Rose. Now, James is the founder of Lottery Advisory Consultancy and one of the most experienced voices when it comes to societal lottery compliance in the UK. And why are we spotlighting him? Well, James is a keynote speaker at an event I am helping to run next month, namely the HLA Conference, which will be taking place in Eastwood. And it is a gathering of lottery specialists with a slant towards hospices who will be focused on best practice, getting compliance updates and networking. I will put a booking link of the event in the episode notes for anyone interested. But before we talk about the HLA and the conference session that James is going to be doing, James, can you give me a brief rundown for people watching this on how you found yourself to be in the world of lotteries?
Sure. You mean, how did I go on that slippery slope to start on the exciting world of sport and end up in the boring world of lottery compliance?
Yes.
Fine. I'll keep this as short as possible because I'm getting quite old now. My number of jobs I've had is actually getting pretty long. When I left university, my first job was at a football club, so Middlesbrough Football Club, way back in the day. I loved that job because I love football. You can probably see a few bits and pieces behind me. And it was doing marketing. It was handing out the water bottles at half time, meeting the players, doing everything you could possibly imagine. And the team in Middlesbrough was tiny at the time. There were only like 5 or 6 people, in the whole thing. So you got to do like a huge variety of things. From there, I then moved to London, worked for Betfair in international market development for Betfair. So again, super exciting, taking all Betfair's products into, different parts of the world. Really exciting. So back on Betfair, before Betfair was the behemoth that it is today, I think I was within the first, let's say 500 employees that had ever been at the company overall. So after leaving Betfair, I worked for a few different other bookmakers and eventually got a consultancy role that saw me step in as the director of an external lottery manager. I stayed there for about 10 years, worked with a well-known industry figure, Garth Caswell. I'm sure quite a few people, if they're involved in lottery worlds, will know Garth. Amazing guy. He was my compliance officer. As I say, was there for about 10 years. Garth decided that he wanted to retire, to spend more time on cruise ships and fishing and doing all the stuff that he loves doing. And just asked if I was interested in maybe taking on some of his clients, helping them train, helping with compliance issues, helping, with audits, all these sorts of things. I said, yep. That was a couple of years ago. And I guess the rest is history, I suppose.
Great. So how many clients have you got at the moment for Lottery Advisory?
Quite a few, actually. Enough to keep me busy anyway. I don't want to name names, but some really large charities, hospices, some air ambulances, anything you can possibly think of. I help, some clients I have year after year, which is great. Some clients kind of come in when they get themselves into a little bit of hot water. Some clients come to when they're looking to change licenses or move from being a small society lottery to a large, as in they need to go and get a license from the Gambling Commission, having previously just had their local council registration. They need a bit of help there. Sometimes they just get questions on, certain unusual scenarios that have kind of cropped up within their lottery operations. Yeah, a whole heap of reasons and a whole heap of different clients. It's super interesting because, a lot of the time, like I say, you get clients and they come to you for a specific reason. And then that gives you extra kind of like background information or knowledge or understanding of situations that nobody else has got. So it means that when you talk to the people, you can cite all these really interesting examples, what happened, how it happened, what they need to avoid to stop it happening, what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. So yeah, it places me quite well for the job I've got, I guess.
Yeah, full disclosure, I've used James in my day job at Thames Hospice. He did a full day's training for the new emerging team. So I have pretty much always held a personal management license. However, as part of our requirements by the Gambling Commission, we had a recent change in senior management and needed to train up 2 responsible people that sat, one in the finance department and one on the exec team. And so I thought it would be a good idea just to, just refresh my knowledge and find pockets of information that I might have missed over time or new updates, and also to give our two new responsible people a full day's worth of training on gambling commission requirements. Very interesting, very useful, and something that we've sort of like done on an ongoing basis, probably to James's cringe at the moment. We haven't used him since, but there is full intention to.
Training was that good, right?
No, it is good, but I think we've had a discussion about it just in terms about doing a compliance folder, and that's something that we'll be looking to engage with moving forward. So great. Everything there is to know about societal lotteries. And before we talk about the speaker session that you're going to be doing at the HLA conference, there was a post that you did which covered the Gambling Commission risk assessment and money laundering templates. And can you give, just for people who operate a lottery or who have a gambling commission license and may not be aware of the latest update, can you just give a quick summary, a synopsis of what the announcement was and what that impact is for lottery operators in the UK?
Yeah. So really, that article that I wrote kind of comes off the back of the Gambling Commission's 2026 money laundering and terrorist finance risks, which came out at the end of July. So if, I know you guys should be, you're getting the newsletter from the Gambling Commission, it will cover, all of gambling, lots of interesting different stories, and occasionally stuff which is obviously completely related to the industry that you work in. So in this case, it was is lotteries for me. So super interesting, particularly when you get something from the Commission, because that's obviously what is in their mind. So if they raise a point, they're raising it for a reason. So my article there was really just to kind of summarize what it covered and what I think that they're probably getting at, particularly having gone to the Gambling Commission's operators engagement forums as well. So that's what it's all about.
And so they flagged lottery as quite low risk in terms of terrorist financing and anti-money laundering, which I think will come as no surprise to anyone. But what does that mean in sort of practical terms for a lottery operator in terms of, what do they need to be mindful of? And when does low risk become medium risk and medium risk becomes high risk?
I'll try and answer this in a few different ways because like anything, it's kind of a little bit multifaceted. So one of the things that you should be doing every year, annually at least, but certainly when there's changes that come in or there's change in your operations, is reviewing your policies and procedures. One of those is looking at your kind of like risk. And in this case, let's just stick to the whole sort of, terrorist and financing, and crime and that sort of stuff. What we are talking about here is the fact that lotteries are generally low risk in all aspects, because of course, it's low frequency. Generally, it's weekly or monthly. Generally, it's a case of there's only small amounts of money that you can place every week. So, Jim, you must have a limit on the maximum number of tickets that you can or person can purchase for each of your lotteries. Do you know what that is off the top of your head? It's like the training now.
Yeah, so it is for our weekly lottery, it is 10 lines per week. And for our raffles or our super draw lotteries, it's 150 within that given week.
Okay, fine. You can see there that the risk, if someone was, for example, wanting to launder money, they had £1 million or something, but let's just stick to the lottery for the time being. They're only able to kind of put through, £10 per week. It will take them multiple lifetimes to launder that money. Plus, the chance of them actually winning any money back would only be through winning the actual lottery and getting a payout. So very small amounts of money in, very, very, very low chance of actually getting money out. So therefore, that's why that's regarded as low risk. It's not impossible. Somebody might try it, but it's not like it's a bookmaker. Going back to my days at Betfair, it always used to be a case of, because you could bet on something to happen and equally bet on something to not happen. So let's say, betting on Arsenal to beat Spurs, versus betting on, Arsenal to not beat Spurs. You can have two people on either side. I know Jim's smiling there because as an Arsenal fan and winning the league and stuff, obviously he's smug at the moment. But it could be, you've got two people and that's how they just kind of like laundered money. One person is gambling, the other person is winning. You don't get that in lotteries. And that's why it's generally regarded as quite low risk. When it comes to, say, other areas, what the commission did in this new report was actually extremely helpful, because whenever I'm talking to clients, I'm saying, okay, what risks are there within your operations? Are you handling cash? Have you got the right training? Could someone somehow fix it? Can someone steal customer data? All these different things here. And what the commission did really helpfully was to provide this kind of like updated list of all the different risks or areas of risk that they see. So now what I say to all my guys is, look, use this as like your starter for 10. The commission have identified these things as risk. They are therefore risks. What you also need to do is work out how these apply to you, and also what other things apply to you. What is the risk? What have you done to mitigate that risk? And therefore, what is the residual risk?
Yeah, I mean, I found it super helpful for exactly the same reasons that you outlined there. The Gambling Commission provided a template. It looked at different areas that I might not have considered. And when you were going through your answer there and you were talking about, for £1 a week and £1,000 top prize, is an international terrorist ring or a organised criminal gang going to target a local hospice lottery? Absolutely not. However, what it did highlight for me is when you're talking about significant budgets and money, there is one area in which we do spend quite a big amount. That's acquisition. And so that's using canvassing agencies. So there is an opportunity, or there is a higher or an elevated risk of either fraud or the ability to, I've got to watch my words a little bit here, but essentially, because I don't want to besmirch my agencies, because my agencies, as a result of this, provided me with a fraud policy, how they help detect fraud. But it just made us realize that whilst we do due diligence on our suppliers and we are watchful and mindful, that would be one area that would be medium risk versus pretty much, I think, everything else being low risk.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, ultimately, what a lot of operators can forget is the fact that you hold the license. It's therefore your license. You're the licensee. If something goes wrong on your watch, if it's your canvases, the commission will come along and talk to you. And they will say, Jim, what have you done to mitigate this risk? Are you operating reasonably? Are you doing all the things that you should be doing? There's always going to be a chance that something could go wrong. There are people that are going to be hired, people that are going to be, not the right people for the job, not representing your brand, not doing things the right way. That's just life. That's just something that can happen. Now, when you're talking about a canvassing company, it can happen. But the point is, did you stop it as much as you could? Did you put in all the policies and procedures? Did you train them? Did you vet them? Could you have done more? Should you have done more? It's not a case of doing everything you could. And if you took the nth degree, you could go around and literally stand with them and watch every single interaction they have with every single customer. That, of course, would be massive overkill and also impossible to do. But on the other end, it's a case of, did you give them training? Did you talk to them? Did you vet them? Did you see if they were the right sort of person? What was your interaction with the people actually on the streets? What was your interaction in checking of the actual agency before you hired them? Did you do your due diligence? Because at the end of the day, it's not only a case of like, are they going to go and get lottery players for you? It's a case of they're representing, your hospice, your charity. And that's the main thing to kind of consider here. On that point, it's quite interesting that one of the risks which was raised by the commission in this report, one of the new risks was, I'm going to read it here verbatim, training for staff is insufficient and is not appropriately tailored. Now that would class your internal staff, the guys answering the phones, the guys doing, the marketing, whatever it may be, but it also applies to the guys who are actually carrying out licensed activity on behalf of your organization out on the streets.
Yeah. Just the final point before we go on to the speaker spotlight, the point you just raised there is really critical as well, because in the last 12 months, I think internally within my organization, we just made an observation that, lottery was operating pretty much as a silo independently. It was regulated and it was ticking all the Gambling Commission requirements. But one of them is that the wider teams, within fundraising and then outside of fundraising, were not aware of the regulations. And to some degree, there was some element that, well, they don't really need to know. But we made the decision that we needed to communicate this across the trustees, across the exec team, into other departments. So everyone's aware of and what it does. And I think that just makes it more a more responsible organisation in terms of doing it. And I think that whole aspect of trying to sort of like square off your specialism is a pretty big weakness. And it's something that, as you just demonstrated there, that the Gambling Commission would like to see more people aware of it so that it can improve the operations of a Gambling Commission licensed organisation. So
yeah. I mean, on that point, I mean, that was another new risk that the Commission sort of raised as well, which is a lack of competence of key personnel and license holders, which could be exploited by criminals. But just going by that, the first part of that sentence, a lack of competence of key personnel and the license holders. When you go for your license, obviously you fill in a whole raft of information, you submit it to the Commission accepts it, job's good, you've got your license. It's then about maintaining that knowledge as your operation goes on through time, and people come and people go. Okay. And I do see sort of like quite regularly, I'll say, who are your Annex A's, or do you have any PMLs? Most of the time, particularly for small scale operators, which is where we all really want to be in terms of like society lotteries, they'll have Annex A's, but it might be the chief executive and it might be the CFO or something like this. And their day-to-day job actually is nothing to do with the lottery, because they've got to run an entire organization. Then have people a couple of rungs below, and they might be, job title, lottery manager or income generation or something along these lines here. And those are the people who are actually doing the day-to-day work and are actually fully responsible and know everything about it. But they're not Annex A's. So I'll often say to the people, right, who are your Annex A's? Are they the right people to be your Annex A's? Because when the Commission write a letter, they're writing to the Annex A's or to the PMLs. And when they come and inspect you, those are the people that they want to talk to, because according to your license, those are the people who have those responsible positions. So if you have this kind of like break between they just got it because they're the chief executive, but they don't know anything, then how on earth can those guys be responsible for the lottery operations? You need to make sure that the people who are on the license actually have a full understanding of their responsibilities, a full understanding of what lotteries and raffles are, and full understanding of if you are doing all the things that you should be doing. You can see how if you had like a great, highly knowledgeable and experienced team of people running your lotteries and raffles, and they leave and new people come in, but they aren't particularly charged with BRXAs, they will just do the job. And slowly you get this drift of high knowledge, high competence to, well, we do it like this, but I'm not sure why we do it this way. Or you might change payment methods, or you might change draw methodology, you might change ELM. The belief might even creep in that, for example, we've got an external lottery manager, so we don't need to worry about that. Well, that's completely wrong. It's your license. So, you are responsible. You're responsible for the ELM's activities. Now, don't get me wrong. Most ELMs, if I want to say most, all ELMs are great, right? They all know what they're doing, highly competent, highly proficient, but that doesn't remove your responsibility from checking on them. Have you checked their RNG? Have you got their security audit? Do you have regular meetings with them? Are they reporting all the things in the way that you need them? Not necessarily that they're not doing it, but are they doing it the way that you need it to be done for your systems? So that's how you end up with this sort of drift. And that's really kind of like where the training can come in and be like very useful. Even if you've been within, if you're a person that's been trained before, or if you've been involved in your lottery for a long time, but your job role changes. If you've gone from a finance team to another part of the lottery, then actually the things that you look at on a day-to-day basis will change, and you still need to know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Just again, anyone listening, just the way that we set it up internally is previously it used to be a lottery manager who used to be on the schedule at our place, but then, and I was traditionally that person. But within the last year, we've added two others. One, just to overcome that thing that if anything were to happen to me, or as my boss used to say, please don't get run over by a bus, that we'd still be a compliant lottery operator. But essentially, we've got three people as our responsible people that are named on the schedule. That's me. I look after the day-to-day. And as James said, I look after the ELMs. I look after our canvassing. I look after compliance internally. And I oversee the running of the lottery on a day-to-day basis. The second person is our director of fundraising. And the reason that she was put on the schedule was because of her ability to inform the exec board. I don't sit on the exec board internally, but we could then prove that the exec board are fully informed and have a responsible person reporting in there, and as well to the board of trustees. So that was the second person. And then the third person was a business manager within our finance team, and that ticks all the boxes in terms of payment processing, financial due diligence, and robustness and checks to make sure that the ELM and everything was balanced off when it comes to lottery. So that sort of balance that we've got, I think, without sounding braggadocious, is probably the optimum structure.
It's good, yeah. 2 or 3 people is where you want to be. Having 3 is fantastic. What you need to do is to make sure that you don't end up in 3 little mini silos and don't talk to each other, because of course there'll be stuff that kind of comes in, and it might even come into one of you guys. It might come into someone that picks up the phone, someone that answers the emails. It might come into ELM and they feed it into one of you guys. But having that sort of multiple people who all have expert sort of level knowledge is what's required to spot something that might be incorrect or wrong, or could raise an issue, or might require one of your policies or procedures to be updated. So having 3 people is great. And how often do you have your internal meetings about the lottery?
So thankfully, sounds like it's scripted. It's absolutely not scripted. We did not discuss this before this call. However, one of the reasons, in answer to your question, we have a quarterly meeting between 3 responsible people and 2 other people who work within the fundraising and work on the team. So there's 5 people in attendance on a quarterly basis, whereby we look at the performance of the lottery, do any issues, and we always do sort of like, what happened in the last quarter, what's happening in this quarter. So everyone's fully briefed. The main reason that we do the quarterly meetings is primarily because I have an absolute fear of being audited by the Gambling Commission. And one of my worst nightmares would be a responsible person being drafted in for an interview. I had no qualms about me being pulled in for an audit interview, because I'd answer the processes that we do. I'd be pretty confident that I'd be able to honestly and openly answer all the questions in a compliant way, and it would be robust. However, I would have a nightmare thinking that we had a responsible person who got drafted in and they did not have a clue about lottery processes and procedures. And that's where, with my other 2 responsible people in the quarterly meetings, I'm confident that if I were to be run over by a bus tomorrow, and we did have the Gambling Commission audit tomorrow, that those 2 people would be able to honestly and openly answer all questions on lottery and have an accurate picture of where it's actually based, situated.
That's ultimately where you need to be. You need to make sure that your policies and procedures there almost so that if you were removed, hopefully it's not because you get hit by a bus, it's maybe because you win the national lottery and you decide, I'm so wealthy.
Powerball, 300 million.
Yeah, the Powerball. There you go. You win the Powerball. Congratulations, Jim. Happy days. You don't go into work. Somebody then needs to pick up the reins. Or if your policies and procedures are being regularly reviewed so they actually are exactly what you are supposed to be doing, they're working correctly as they should do, then someone can just literally step into your shoes. You're at no risk of having no Annex A's on your license, because of course if you've got 0 Annex A's, then you can't actually run any draws or anything. That happened. 3 organizations last year came to me. I had to step in for a period of time just so they could actually run a draw. One of them had actually suspended, I think, or not suspended is the wrong word, but they had no Annex A's. They couldn't run any draws, and they had this month's gap. For you, Jim, I'm sure that a month's gap would be significant loss in income. So it's important to have those 2 or 3 people. But going back to the original point, which was if something happens to one of these guys, to you or to one of the others, it's about making sure that that knowledge isn't in your head. It's making sure that those policies are there, those procedures are there, that your diary of when you got to check these things or, activities upcoming can literally just be taken by somebody else.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we did say this is a speaker spotlight, and we have been spotlighting you in terms of you've been demonstrating sort of your lottery knowledge and your compliance matters, and I found it super interesting. It's been great to chat to you. However, You are a keynote speaker at the HLA Conference taking place next month, which I'm super excited about. As mentioned, I'm also helping on the organisation front of that. So I'm encouraging everyone to book tickets and get involved with the event. Can you just give me a brief overview of your session you're running, what the title of it is, the subject, and what sort of areas you're going to be covering off?
Well, you actually named it for me, more than a tick box. What it's actually all about is just kind of the overarching position that you guys should all be in terms of compliance policies and procedures. Not just kind of assuming that it's there or that it's someone else's responsibility, but it's actually your responsibility. It's about building that culture where every decision being made, every person who's responsible for any of the life's activity understands what they should be doing, why they should be doing it, in order to protect your supporters, build trust, or certainly in the case of, hospices, not to do something which seems out of kilter with your whole point, with your whole existence. You're there to support people, you're there to help people. The last thing that you want is some sort of lottery scandal. So that's what it's all about. The session itself, Jim's very kindly given me access to some technology. So apparently it'll be a case of everyone bring their iPhone and scan this code, and we'll be voting on things like it's, what's that TV program? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right?
Okay, yeah, ask a friend.
Ask a friend, yeah. So we'll be doing that sort of stuff. We'll be voting, and it'll be quite interesting. I mean, I can't remember if I sent you an email, but obviously if you've got anything that comes into you, Jim, any questions for anybody, ping them over to me, because I'll put them into it and just make it more interesting. Because the last thing that anybody wants to sit through some boring, generic talk about compliance. If I can make it interactive, interesting, and actually answer questions for the people who are actually going to be there on the day, then I'll be doing that.
Brilliant. So it's an interactive session. The tech that we're going to be using is Slido, which is a question and answer thing. So that's going to be really good to get the canvas, the opinions and the status of different lottery operators within the room. The other element is obviously as part of the event, we've got an exhibit hall and a networking area, and James is going to be floating around there. He's, as you would have guessed from this little episode here, he's super approachable, super knowledgeable. So if you are attending the HLA conference, you will be within the networking areas, open to talking to people, helping them out with one-off questions. And if they need further support, you can take that offline with them. But yeah, really looking forward to it. It's going to be a good event. It's one of the two events that are always sort of like solid in my events calendar, the HLA conference being in September, as well as the Lottery Council one in May. And they cover both good ground with great speakers. And And
of course, I spoke at that one in May as well. So that was really, really interesting. I know that there'll be a few people that are watching this that are going to both. That'd be great to see them as well. I know that you've got a couple of interesting speakers actually at the HLA conference as well that I know quite well. So I'm looking forward to kind of sitting on their sessions as well.
Excellent. Yeah, we've got people from Cancer UK talking about lottery operators who operate on a national basis and how we can learn lessons from the regional hospice area. We've got gorgeous George Collins from the Lotteries Council. He's going to be hosting a panel talking about digital acquisition. We've got Ben Swart talking about radical thanking. Yeah, there's a whole list of speakers and topics that we're going to be covering off, from legal compliance to acquisition to digital to thanking to good causes to national players. So it's a real good mix of sessions and speakers and interactive sessions. And we also have the Gambling Commission there, who will be doing their updates and their informative sessions and workshops as well. So I'm starting to sound like Eddie Hearn. I think I can rattle off these the features of the show quite well at the moment. But yeah, definitely looking forward to your session, James. Thanks a million for joining us today. I presume the best place to find out more information will be lotteryadvisory.com on the website. And what I'll do is I'll also put a link to your LinkedIn profile. What's the best email to get you on, or is it best to LinkedIn DM?
Yeah, well, either or, but email just james@lotteryadvisory.com. That's the one.
Perfect. All right then, James. Listen, thanks again for your time today. Super informative. Looking forward to the event next month, and also looking forward to your session. Thanks again. Any questions, drop me a line, and see you in the next episode.